What better way to celebrate AEW pay-per-view week, Full Gear week, than with a little bonus video, a tier list video on Tony Khan's major announcements in AEW. Now, I know this isn't usually the type of content I make. I've actually made one tier list video before this. It was over 2 years ago, back in 2021, April 2021. And that tier list was on factions, and it did surprisingly decent for that time. My channel wasn't nowhere near as big as it is now, so I thought I'd give it another try here. Yeah, guys, I thought this would be fun. I know that some people are gonna get offended just by seeing that title, thinking that I'm like, acting in bad faith, but this is all about fun, guys. Come on, it's pay-per-view week, it's Full Gear week. What's there not to be hyped about? It's gonna be a good show. I'm more than sure of that. But I had this idea just randomly. I was just sitting, and then it just randomly came into my mind, especially with the complaints of Tony Khan's most recent major announcement. I thought this would be a very cool thing to do. So in doing research for this, I was surprised to find that, at least from what I could find, only 10 major Tony Khan announcements have ever happened. As I said, at least from what I could find. So yeah, I have all 10 here on this tier maker. And my goal is to rank them on this rank system that I created here. I only put 4 tiers because really, outside of these 4, I really don't think there's a need for more. So you have at the very top here, you have all-timer, and of course that's obviously the best one. And right underneath that one, you have good. Underneath good, you have mid, and underneath mid, you have horrendous. Because yeah, let's be hyperbolic here while we do this tier list. So yeah, the last time I made a video like this was over 2 years ago, as I just said, and the reception to it was mostly good, except for when someone posted that video on Reddit, someone called it lazy content. So I just wanted to say that for that one person who called the tier list video lazy content, this video is specifically for you. So the first one I have here on my list is the All In 2024 ticket announcement. This is infamously the most recent Tony Khan major announcement, which was pretty much met with disgust and hate. And a lot of people were saying that couldn't just been a tweet. And honestly, I think this is an announcement that could have been made without prior promotion. Just like with the Continental Classic, man, I really think that's the approach Tony Khan should take from now on. The way he announced the Continental Classic, that's why it was received so well. It came out of nowhere. It was a big announcement. He could have promoted it beforehand if he wanted to. It would have been met with pretty positive reception, but no, even then he chose not to promote it beforehand. And the Continental Classic, which was announced just this past Saturday, and it was met with critical acclaim almost from the AEW fan base. So the most recent major announcement was this All In 2024 ticket sale, on date ticket sale, which is December 1st. It's good that we're starting off with this one, because we're getting the worst ones out of the way pretty early. As far as Tony Khan's major announcements go, like I said, he did not have to promote this beforehand. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're starting off this video very strong, very controversial. I'm sure people are gonna get upset about this choice. I'm gonna put this in horrendous as far as Tony Khan major announcements go. As I put it there, I need to explain that I do understand the fact that he said it on TV. Of course, you're gonna say it on TV for your TV audience to hear. The only thing he didn't have to do was promote it beforehand. That's what I'm saying. He could have delivered the announcement like he did with the Continental Classic. That's just my opinion. So yeah, we're moving on to the next one. So next on our list is the announcement of the TBS title. Prior to this being confirmed on television, Tony Khan called it an announcement a long time coming. Yeah, a lot of people were demanding, I think at that time people were demanding like tag team titles for the women's division, which I never really agreed with. But with that being said, I do think like a mid-card women's title. I know they don't explicitly call it a mid-card women's title, but that's essentially what it is. A mid-card women's title, I think, was the right way to go instead of women's tag team titles. As far as this announcement goes, it's one of the better ones in AEW history. I think when this was announced, I think it was pretty universally welcomed. And it gave a lot of people hope that Tony Khan would start focusing on the women's division some more, which of course we all know how that ended up. Oddly enough, I think the way the women's division is being booked now is, a little bit hopeful, a little bit promising. I'm still not going to get my hopes up completely, but it's weird that right now it's showing promise compared to, Like, for example, when this title was announced, we're talking about strictly the announcement itself. I think this was a good tier announcement. I don't think it was an all-timer. Obviously, it wasn't mid. I think this was worth having an announcement made over it. What's crazy though is that I think the reason why people seem to believe that Tony Khan has made a million huge announcements is because people seem to lump in the announcements made with no promotion into the ones that were promoted. Like, for example, I have some examples listed here. The international title name change, that wasn't promoted beforehand, but Tony Khan still, announced it. But like I said, it wasn't promoted. The announcement of the Trios title was not promoted beforehand. Neither was the Continental Classic, as I just mentioned, and also the Owen Hart tournament. That one was a huge deal. It was announced via a press release. So yeah, guys, I think that's why people seem to think that, Tony Khan has made a million announcements, because people lump all of those into one long list. And that's why those aren't included, because they weren't promoted beforehand. But it's pretty crazy. Like I said, when I compiled this list, I really could only find evidence of 10 existing, and it's crazy. I thought there was like over 20. I was ready for this to be a super long video, but anyway, I went on a sidetrack. The TBS title announcement was a good tier announcement in my opinion. So up next we have the big announcement from Tony Khan about AEW and New Japan having their first joint pay-per-view, Forbidden Door. I can only speak for myself when I say this is something that I wanted since AEW first came to be. Obviously a partnership with New Japan, because that's where a lot of the founding fathers came from, and because New Japan has some of the best wrestlers in the world, man. Of course, that's why AEW was an alternative. WWE is the promotion that exists in its own ecosystem. AEW being an alternative meant partnerships, crossovers. So by the time this announcement was made though, I would say that it was almost expected, because we had a good amount of New Japan AEW crossovers by this point. So obviously this announcement was hype, the way they announced it, New Japan president and then Jay White being there. I would put that in the good tier, man. I know some people personally might put it in the all-timer tier, but as far as announcements go, I think it's in the good tier. I don't want to put too many in the all-timer, because then people will just call me a shill or something, or I don't know. I'm judging too nicely on these announcements. So as far as announcements go, I think the announcement of AEW and New Japan having their first ever joint pay-per-view is a good one. Okay, here's a big one. Tony Khan announcing that he's purchased Ring of Honor. Right off the bat, I'm gonna put this into all-timer. I don't see how you can put it anywhere else. Tony Khan buying another wrestling promotion, one as prestigious, as historic, as decorated as Ring of Honor, is a huge deal, man. Especially because at the time, I think a lot of people expected WWE to buy them out. I don't know, Ring of Honor was really, in the trenches, man. They were close to fading away. So this was a huge deal. It was a massive deal. I remember this happening on the Go Home episode of Revolution 2022, which is the same show where, MJF and CM Punk had that, the devil exchange, it was just a crazy episode if you look back on it now. But yeah, man, how can you not put this into the all-timer tier? I mean, even Tony Khan, when he was like, there's no Shane, Shane's not here. This guy is a fool, bro. I thought that was super funny. And I don't know, it's a huge announcement. I don't care what happened afterwards, what came afterwards. And as in, I really don't care for Ring of Honor too much these days. I'll watch their pay-per-views. I don't watch weekly, but the announcement itself was a huge deal. It was massive, and I just remember being like holy shit, Tony Khan is Tony Khan is for real, man. And he just bought Ring of Honor, and it was really cool to for him to now have the tape library over WWE, because if WWE bought it, it would just be another monopoly. So yeah, this was a huge moment in wrestling history, and honestly, despite what I think about Ring of Honor right now, objectively Ring of Honor is doing better now than it was right before Tony Khan bought it. Obviously, people are buying tickets for the shows, people are buying the pay-per-views, and people are talking about the promotion. So, but up next we have the announcement of AEW's second primetime live show, Collision. So this is just the announcement of Collision finally being a thing. It was something that I think we all knew. If you're on the internet and you like wrestling, I think we all saw this coming. It was the trademarks for this show had leaked, I think months prior. It was in the works for quite a bit. As far as announcements go in Tony Khan's multiverse of major announcements, I would put this in horrendous. No, I'm just kidding. I would put this in the good tier, man. It's obviously not an all-timer. I wouldn't call it mid. Like mid would be like, no, it was a pretty huge deal for AEW to get a second live primetime show on Warner TV, especially because by this point a lot of the roster was not being used. So AEW had just signed Jay White too, who a lot of people were complaining about needed more TV time, and Collision changed all of that, man. I think this was a good announcement. I wouldn't put it in all-timer. Maybe you would. Like I said, this is all my opinion, but if you guys disagree, let me know in the comments. It's fine, we can fight about it in the comments. So the thing with the Collision announcement is it comes hand in hand with two announcements that came right after it. Tony Khan made big announcements 3 weeks in a row, man, and I think this is why people have gotten tired of the big announcements in 2023. I don't even think I told you guys, but like I counted them, and out of the 10 major announcements Tony Khan has made here on this list, 6 of them happened this year. That's over half of them. So, and he made the following 2 all happened in quick succession. So he made 3 announcements in a row that were advertised beforehand. So here's the next one. The announcement of the premiere episode of Collision happening at the United Center in Chicago. This is an all-timer. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, I would put this in mid, because there's no reason why they couldn't have announced this the week before, or literally just in a tweet. I get that there was a lot of like drama happening behind the scenes with the premiere of Collision. That apparently Punk and The Office were going back and forth on whether Punk was going to be there or not. That's at least what was reported. We already know not to believe reports or whatever. You believe what you want to believe. It's all right, but I'm just saying what was reported. Yeah, man, this was a mid-announcement because I really don't see why they announced this. And then the following week, we got another Tony Khan will make a huge announcement where they announced that CM Punk would return after Brawl Out finally on the premiere episode of Collision at the United Center. And as far as announcements go, I don't think this deserves to be in mid. I think this deserves to be in good announcement. But it's something that should have came hand in hand with this one right here, the one where they announced that they booked the United Center. That's just my opinion. I don't know. And that's the reason why people started getting burnt out on Tony Khan's big announcements. I remember like literally that whole month he had a big announcement every week, and it all had to do with the premiere of Collision. So yeah, man, I would put Punk's long-awaited return to AEW in the good tier. It's obviously not an all-timer. I don't think it's mid, and it's not horrendous for sure. But this next one is a strange one, man. We have the announcement of AEW All Access, the reality show where cameras are allowed to go backstage and follow the journey of multiple AEW wrestlers. I really don't know where to put this one. Obviously, I wouldn't call it horrendous. I wouldn't call it like good either. Obviously, this all depends on who you are as a person, what you're into. I might just put this in mid. I'm gonna put this in mid because I remember people were thinking, what were people even thinking this announcement could be? I honestly thought it would just be the announcement of Adam Cole's return, and it ended up being that, but it also mostly ended up being the announcement of the reality show. But I'm calling it mid because I didn't even finish that reality show. Like I watched the first 2 episodes and then I just stopped. So as far as announcements go, it's literally middle of the road for Tony Khan. So okay, this next one is the announcement that AEW was running Wembley Stadium this year. This was a huge surprise that caught everybody off guard. I don't think anybody had reported Wembley Stadium beforehand. It's crazy to me that this actually hadn't leaked beforehand. Now that I think about it, yeah, that's super crazy to me, man. That, usually venues getting booked, especially for a show this massive, that usually leaks beforehand. But the fact that this one hadn't leaked was really crazy. I remember everybody being shocked, and of course instantly the doubters were like, they're not gonna fill that stadium, and AEW's biggest believers, myself included, were like, don't tell them you can't do something because then they'll do it. So they did end up filling that stadium pretty well. They claimed the record for all-time paid attendance. I know people like to fight over that now, but I really don't worry about it too much anymore. But as far as announcements go, as far as ranking this with Tony Khan's announcements, I would put this in the good tier, man. I think that one was worth the hype and worth the anticipation, the promotion. It was worth the promotion beforehand. I think it lived up to the hype because a show that big, you know, AEW announcing basically a WrestleMania caliber show is a huge deal. The only reason why I wouldn't put it in all-timer is because All In meant that all the clickbait British YouTubers could finally attend an AEW show. That's the only reason why. And lastly on our list is, this was the first record I could find of a Tony Khan announcement being promoted beforehand, before the show. And it was the announcement of the first dance. The first dance, man. You just had to be there. You just had to be there. Yeah, like I said, I tried to look back before this and I couldn't find anything. And you know how I know this was the first one? Because in doing research for this video, when I found the first dance announcement, it was being advertised as Tony Khan will announce a major new live event. So technically it was the first of its kind. It didn't have the Tony Khan will make a major announcement branding, but I included it just because it was the first of its kind. And people were speculating whether Tony Khan would appear on AEW TV, and that's how you knew it was a big deal, and how it was the first of its kind, because people weren't sure if Tony Khan was finally going to appear on AEW TV. I think before this he had only been on TV like twice, and it was in a very, very small role. And now Tony Khan, you know, makes all the announcements himself, but this was the first time where people were like, oh, if Tony Khan is going to appear, it must be a big deal. And of course, for those who don't know, who weren't there or who don't remember, the first dance, it was AEW booking the United Center, calling this episode of Rampage the first dance, basically assured us that AEW had signed CM Punk and that he was going to make his debut at this show in Chicago, Illinois, of course. And they called it the first dance, you know, alluding to or a reference to Michael Jordan's The Last Dance documentary. And this announcement goes hand in hand with Darby's promo afterwards, where, you know, he name dropped literally the best in the world. And I remember when Tony Schiavone, it's funny because Tony Khan didn't even make this announcement himself. He sent out Tony Schiavone, but after Tony Schiavone made the announcement, the crowd instantly, you know, started chanting CM Punk, and they were loud chants, man. So this is one of my favorite AEW moments ever. Like literally just the confirmation of the first dance. I'm not even talking about the first dance itself, because that's like literally my favorite moment as a wrestling fan ever, the first dance itself. But the announcement of the first dance, I remember the hype. It literally almost broke the internet, and Darby name dropping best in the world was a huge moment. Obviously this is my opinion. People are gonna call me a Punk fanboy. Go ahead, because I am, obviously. But I'm gonna put this in the all-timer tier, man, because you just had to be there. Like, by the way, the first dance, this announcement was made on the same episode where we had the Dark Order versus the Elite in that elimination tag, and that was just a great episode of AEW, man. That was peak AEW, so I have to put in all-timer just so for the vibes. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much my tier list. I hope I didn't bore you guys with all my, you know, exposition, all my, you know, all my thoughts. But all things considered, now that I see this tier list, Tony Khan's major announcements tend to live up to the hype. It's only been this year that, you know, he really has started to, you know, lose his touch. Because look at these three. Obviously, this is all subjective, but the bottom three all happened this year. And if you look at the top half, most of them happened over the course of the last couple of years. The bottom three only happened this year. So I think that Tony Khan has realized, you know, that he needs to stop making these mistakes, which is why he announced the Continental Classic without a prior, you know, announcement. It worked in his favor, man. Everybody loved it, like I said. But I hope you guys liked this video. This was just a fun little bonus video. I hope you guys don't get too mad about this. It's all in good fun, like I said. Like, come on, guys. Like, it's AEW pay-per-view week. It's gonna be a good show. I don't usually ask you guys to do this, but go ahead and please like this video, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you the next time. Peace.